Hey, everybody. Can you hear me loud and clear? How's the sound? Give me a comment and happy Thursday. Wow, it's bright in here. Hope you can see everything well. And it's Thursday. We had an amazing day yesterday, although not so amazing, to be honest. I mean, hawkish noise, not very nice to hear the words that unlikely the whole market was anticipating another interest rate cut, and it seems as though we're not going to get another one, and that's why we had this steep correction. Anyway, we'll cover off what Mr. Powell had to share with us, the outcome of the FOMC meeting, some minutes and some interpretations there. Government's still in shutdown and nothing's working over there, yet we are still here to serve you 24/7. That's the beauty of Truflation and what we're working on. So that's live. We also have some GDP numbers. The BEA is supposed to be announcing GDP numbers. What's going on over there while the government's shut down? How long is the government shutdown going to continue? So we'll cover off some of that. And then first $5 trillion company, NVIDIA broke through that benchmark. So that's pretty interesting. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then, of course, we had an Azure outage. Right after we had the AWS outage a couple of weeks ago, now we have the Azure outage, or at least it feels like a couple of weeks ago, but actually it was only like last week or 2 weeks ago, right? And then we're going to talk about Argentina, right? We started covering Argentinian inflation numbers a while back, and let's have a look at where they're at now. They just got a $40 billion loan from the US government to support and keep the economy alive. Ultimately, that's going to go back to trade and US companies to help build out infrastructure. We all know that Milei is very keen to develop infrastructure and build out a lot of the country's rural areas and develop that a little bit more outside of Buenos Aires and into other parts of the country. But inflation is holding steady at about a 20-30% annual rate. So he's brought it down from a couple of 200-300%. So significant 10x improvement. All the meanwhile, the country seems to be really happy with him. So we'll cover off all of that. So if you were paying attention, you'll get to hear a lot of that. Apologies if I cough in the middle. I did catch, and like I mentioned on Tuesday, I did catch a little bit of something, who knows what, in the plane. Bad air. The filters still aren't there. So despite all the COVID and the mandates and the restrictions and the guidances to increase air filtrages in airplanes, it ain't happened. Somebody's not enforcing regulation yet. For us and the people, we still are enforced and forced to pay taxes and make sure that we comply as individuals, et cetera. So either way, I'm Stefan Rust. I'm the founder and CEO of Truflation and the Truth Network. Happy to be here again on a Tuesday, doing regular updates every Tuesday and Thursday at this time. So if you're in Europe, it's 5 p.m. because daylight saving times. I think it's 6 p.m. It's 12 p.m. on the East Coast. -3 makes it 9 a.m. on the West Coast. And in Asia, it's midnight. Or no, the US changes time tomorrow. Or this weekend. So if you're in the US, get your time clocks ready. Time change is coming this week. Anyway, so I'm not here to talk about time chasers. We're really going to go deep into what happened at the Federal Reserve yesterday. So ultimately, we got an interest rate drop. Let me just share my screen so you can see this too alongside me. 1, 2, 3. So we saw the Fed published their minutes and their formal press release, which they do sort of 30 minutes before the press conference. And so 25 basis points cut. So we all heard that. The market had anticipated that, right? Some 98% of the market was anticipating that. So didn't really move the needle. A little bit, you saw a little up, and then very quickly a rapid down. I'll get to the rapid down very shortly. But Economic activity continues to expand, so still looking good. However, job gains have slowed down. The unemployment numbers have edged slightly higher. I don't know how they get unemployment numbers, because if they're relying on data, and actually in the interview, Jerome Powell did refer to using private sources for data, and not just government sources. Maybe they're using Truflation, because ultimately inflation has moved up since earlier this year, remains somewhat elevated, but it's 3%. And we've always said 3 is the new 2. I think the administrations have always been, or the FOMC has always been aiming for a 2%. All the central banks around the world talk about a regular 2% number. But in essence, it's not 2%. The new 3 is the new 2. Sorry. So 2% is just not realistic anymore. I think 3% is going to be the new norm, and that's where we're going to be staying, at least if you track it based on the government numbers. If you're tracking it based on Truflation, you're much closer to 2. But we've got an updated model. We've refreshed. We've got live data feeds, way more, some 30 different data feeds with some 20, 30 million price feeds that we actually pull in and aggregate for you to be able to calculate true inflation. Anyway, so it's all a lot of employment, unemployment, employment, inflation high. Fed would conclude its balance sheet reduction on December 1. So we shift from quantitative tightening. They're going to start doing, just stopping quantitative tightening. That's the way they phrase it. And so all of a sudden, these things take time to trickle into the market. But if we bear in mind, when he talks about unemployment data, you look over here, you're seeing a whole bunch of jobs being cut. Hyundai factory after ICE rate we out. I don't know what that is, but Amazon announced the 30,000 job cut. UPS cuts 48,000 jobs. Target only 1,800, but still number of jobs. Microsoft 15,000 job cuts. Maybe that's why Azure went down, right? I don't know. Did you see Azure go down? Azure outage. Websites came back online. DNS outage impacts Azure Microsoft 365. Deploys fix, Microsoft reports earnings as at the same time it has the outage. So I don't know, were you experienced by the outage? Were you flying into London Airport? Apparently London Airports, all the systems went down. Anybody in London Airport from here, let me know if you flew through London and you experienced some of that outage. But so they announced their earnings. So here you can see, let's close this down. This is The Guardian. Not necessarily a news site I like to go to, but tech giant reports a 3.7 day deal after OpenAI pushed value of company to more than $4 trillion. So OpenAI is worth $4 trillion. NVIDIA just broke through $5 trillion. What do you guys think of that? Do you really think OpenAI is $4 trillion? Let me know in the comments. What do you think? Come on, guys. Let's hear some points. What do you think? Yes, no, maybe so, can be, cannot be, who knows? Anyway, apparently rumor has it they're doing an IPO, and the IPO is valuing OpenAI at $1 trillion. So I don't know how they get to the $4 trillion here versus the $1 trillion at IPO, but we'll see an IPO at $1 trillion. That's the first time we see such a high number. And who knows what that means in the market? Remember, is that going to be the peak of the market? And be careful. From a retail perspective, these are now all institutional investors that have blown up their participation into these companies, into OpenAI. They've taken it up. They've pushed the valuation higher and higher and higher. They have big positions. So they are looking to offload some of those positions into retail. So make sure you are not a part of retail, or make sure you do your research first, whether you think that it is a $1 trillion, is it valued? And do you appreciate that value of $1 trillion? Do you think it's going to go to $4 trillion? If so, you're going to go up 4x, and then that's a good time to buy. What are you going to do? Let me know what your thoughts are. If you get it up to 4 trillion, that's going to be amazing. I sort of somehow fear that this price is going to be so high that it's going to bring a shift into the marketplace. In the past, we always saw certain triggers of companies. When Netscape went public, that sort of brought about a wave of dot-com companies to then get public. When what was it? Was it Uber? When Uber went public or Airbnb went public, all of a sudden it brought about a wave of mobile apps that went public. Will OpenAI bring about that same kind of momentum? Or will we see the opposite, where it will have sucked out all the money out of the market, all liquidity, and there's nothing else around? And that will then tear down the market. What do you think? I don't know. Those are different things. I haven't done my research in that. So, but you can be sure I will be looking into that. And if you stay tuned to this channel, I'll give you further thoughts on what I think that will look like. But right now, interest rates have come down. If interest rates come down, that means money supply go up. If money supply go up, then assets rise. So we're likely to see a further increase in asset prices. So do not fear, money is here. So we're going to see some continued growth there, and asset prices continue to go up. When will we see it go from equities into crypto assets? And we haven't seen that yet. I think that's something that we're all waiting for, and we should be seeing at some point. Who knows when? But yeah, that is the big question. Anyway, that was Powell. That was sort of the minutes, the press. You could see that there. Here, let me just share that again with you so you can see my screen as well. Truflation, Fed continued. But more importantly, I think this is what really got the market rallied up, was really when Powell went out there and gave his speech. And I think this is what really drove the market down, got everybody scared, right? So here again, please follow Truflation on Twitter, on YouTube. Subscribe to this channel. You always get some interesting macro insights here before you get them anywhere else. Why? Because we aggregate real world data faster and more real time across 100 different data points for you live. And here we go. Anyway, what do you see here? If you follow Truflation or subscribe to the newsletter, you're going to see here Fed cut 25 basis points. But what are the key takeaways? So why another cut? Powell said the balance of risks has shifted. Downside risks to jobs have increased while inflation remains above 2%. So if inflation is still above 2%, why is he doing another cut? Remember, the FOMC has two priorities. One is to watch out for inflation, and the other is to maintain a strong employment environment. And so they're juggling those two data sets and those two situations around interest rates. And so I guess that's why they were conservative and only went down 25 basis points. December isn't guaranteed, and this is what got the market shaken up, right? Powell emphasized that a further cut in December is not a foregone conclusion. Sorry, guys, I am a bit sick, so bear with me, but I'm in a studio, not infecting anybody else. I'm all alone, so don't worry, and you can't get infected through the internet, at least not to common knowledge. But anyway, so Powell emphasized a further cut in December is not a foregone conclusion, far from it. And this is what drove down the prices, right? The market went tanked, took a big hit, a beating, especially crypto markets too. And it seems like we've experienced a huge crypto uprun. All the meanwhile, governments have been against us, interest rates, monetary policy, all against us. And we haven't even experienced a crypto run with a supportive government framework and a supportive monetary policy, let alone the regulatory hurdles that still remain in Europe and in China. Despite the change in the US that has really given a breather. And look at where all the innovation's going. Look at where the money's flowing. It's all going to the US. All innovation is moving that direction. So unfortunately, for the rest of the world, the brain drain is happening. All the meanwhile, which nations are getting that gain? Where is the brain gain going to? And we're seeing it ultimately in the Middle East, in places like Singapore, maybe Hong Kong, but also the US, maybe Argentina now too. Look at Argentina. What do you think? Would you move to Argentina? Anyway, we'll get to that a little bit later. But tariffs and inflation, rising tariffs are lifting goods and prices and overall inflation. So here, let's have a look. You can see here in Truflation, go to truflation.com, use the Truflation US inflation number, Truf US. You can see here, yeah, I mean, the goods have been going up all the way since down in August 7th. It has been climbing, climbing, climbing. The goods have been coming down again a little bit, but they're now at a high. Is that due to tariff? But I think one of the most interesting things is we haven't seen a crossover to services. And if you look here, you can finally see goods have overtaken services in terms of increase year on year. And that hasn't happened, I think, over since, wow, here, back here, it's sort of changed back in September 2022. So what's that? That's like three years ago. For the first time in 3 years, goods have increased greater, the cost of goods have increased greater than the cost of services. So the cost of services are beginning to stay flat. What does that mean? That sort of implies that there's a lot more investment going into infrastructure, into purchasing goods, into importing products, and the tariffs might be having an impact on that, or just the demand on goods are growing. There's enough talent and resources out there, which is a good sign, but there's maybe not enough raw material out there. And so the cost of raw material is slowly crouching upwards. Anyway, I thought that's an interesting insight, and we'll have a post on that coming out very soon. So you can see that QT ends as of December 1. We talked about that earlier. That was also what was reflected in the press release. Next phase of balance sheet policy. So hold the Fed's balance sheet steady for time, let agencies, MBS, run off and reinvest into treasury bills, gradually move towards shorter duration, treasury heavy portfolio over time. Oh, wow. So, yeah, so they're moving their balance sheet into treasury bills. So, what does that mean? They're going to take cash and inject the cash into the market to buy treasuries from the market. So, the Federal Reserve will start buying T bills. And by the looks of it, it's going to move towards shorter T bills. So, shorter term versus longer term. So, the obligation is not that long. Policy stance and neutral rate. So after 150 basis points cuts this year, policy is now modestly restrictive. Powell noted most neutral rate estimates sit between 3 to 4%, meaning policy is near the edge of neutral assets. Yeah, labor market view, jobs, data drought problem. So this is where he talks about it, right? I don't think he says driving blind, but you're seeing that along a lot across a lot of social media. And here we are, we're out of data, and that's where Truflation comes in, and that's why we have a doing. If you're driving in the fog, you slow down. So the government is slowing down. And why are they slowing down? Because Truflation doesn't slow down. Truflation's going on hardcore. We're driving harder. Truflation has been operating flawlessly throughout the data blackout period, providing real-time inflation data. So go use it. Go check it out. Sorry, I'm not sharing my tab. Check it out here. Truflation is live, going on and on and on. And you can see the Truflation index here reporting to you daily, every single time. And I can take out goods, I can take out services. We can see it's slowly picking up. Let's go to the 1 year. We saw a bottom down here in April at 1.2% and now slowly crouching up, but still 2.43%. So in the closer to the 2% right now. You can compare it to the PCE. So how's the PCE going? This is Truflation's PCE, or is this the government PCE? This is the government PCE. And I can contrast this to the government BLS number. So you can come in here and you can compare the two. Boom, right? So we're comparing the BLS prices with the other one. So you can see BLS is higher than that of Truflation. Yeah, once again, always the trends are your friend, and you can see these shifts in movements some 45 days ahead, right? So these movements don't happen. I don't know why we've smoothed it out so little, but you only see monthly updates in the government numbers, and this is since 2010. Maybe we'll just look at something a bit sooner. So let's go to 2020, bang, and then January 1, and then let's apply. It's all the way to September. Why are we only looking at September and not today? Let's go to 2025. We're still in 2025. Let's go to October 30th, apply. And so you can see here, we're still updating in real time. Where's the government number? Here we come. You can see this live. Come on, baby. It should be coming. Government reported rate. I don't know why. Oh, damn it. Sorry, guys. I couldn't get it going. I hit the wrong button. Damn it. But anyway, you've got all of those here, so you can check those out. I'm not going to do that much more because otherwise I'm going to take time away from what I really want to talk about. So, yeah, you see a lot of bifurcated here. Let's go. I mean, again, this is just a summary. You can read it on our Twitter. If you follow our Twitter, please, if you don't, follow it now. If you do, you're in the know, right? If you know, you know, right? And so data drought, big problem over there. Bifurcated economy and banks. Powell noted stress at the lower income level and subprime credit losses, but said the financial system overall remains sound and well capitalized. AI and investment, right? I think we know that AI has contributed a large portion towards GDP. So we saw some 2% of the last GDP read was really from AI. That's investment in energy, that's investment in infrastructure, data centers, etc. So that's really driving the GDP. Policies doesn't see AI-related data center investment as particular rate sensitive. It's driven by long-term productivity bets, but not by 25 basis point change in funding costs. Bottom line, Fed continues to continues cutting rates and will end QT on December 1. Yeah, I mean, will they continue to cut? When will they continue? When will the next end game be? But that's sort of it. You know, we know today is the GDP reading. GDP reading won't happen, you know, due to lapse in appropriations. This website is not being updated. So you can see here the BEA, which is the Bureau of Economic Analytics, is not being updated. And that's why we continue to have Truflation to make sure you get the right price feeds all the time. But yeah, so no GDP rate. And again, if you're following Truflation, we did a survey with our users, only some 743 votes, but still a number of people believe that we will go beyond 35 days. The 35 days is the longest in history, longest shutdown, and that was in December 2018 to January 2019, right? And so that was 35 days, and most of you think that we will go beyond that period. So yeah, longer shutdowns than we will have experienced in the past. Interesting, not sure. Tough times ahead. So some people not sure, some people commenting. Anyway, let's see where and how that goes. But more importantly, again, no US GDP data coming out today. So we do not have any data coming out. Why not? Yeah, we talked about it earlier, the government shutdown. You know, it's like there's no resources, there's no data. If there's no data, how can you drive the economy? How can you make reliable decisions, right? So we at Truflation are trying to give you reliable data all of the time. And as employment is one of the big topics and metrics that are out there, we're launching the Truflation Employment Index. So sign up, subscribe, get this first, but you're going to get real-time reads on the employment situation. So we shared with you last time on Tuesday how we're calculating that, what are our different sources that we're using. You can see a multitude of sources that we've logged here. Here we go. You got the Census Bureau. So we do use the government, but we also use Social Security and SSI claims, Gusto, daily job cuts, Challenger data, ADP data. We have Warren Tracker, Crunchbase. All these sources is what we're using to pull it in to get to you live a new read on employment that you can transparently follow, you can easily comprehend, and you can track, trace, and hopefully at some point trade or predict. That's really what we want to get to you and allow for that to be happening. Yeah, that's it. You know, I think, you know, one of the other things that I thought was really interesting, and we, as you know, launched the Argentina Inflation Index. You can see in here, we worked with the Excuse me, guys. Whoa, Jesus. Woo. Sorry about that. Hope that woke you up. But yeah, here we go. We got Argentina inflation index. Look at how it's come down from a 200% rate to now about 30%. We were down at an all-time low. I think we broke into the 27%. But now we're holding steady at about 30%. So coming down from 200%, that's an amazing drop. Let's see how that continues to go. But ultimately, we are glad to be a part of the administration. And maybe we did help a little bit apart, but I think we bet big on Argentina. And ultimately, that seems to be paying off. Where if you look here, Argentina and Milei's party won huge, right? They won in the parliament deputies, which I guess is like Congress. They won 100. They grew by 172%, 37 to 101 seats. And the senators, they grew by 233 from 6 to 20. So huge win. So that gives him a lot more authority, a lot more influence in the direction and decision making and influence in terms of budget allocation, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of policies, most probably even restrictions and decline in regulations. So let's see what happens there. But exciting times ahead. That's Argentina for you. Yeah, GDP's down, Argentina's down. I think the last thing, which was really the $5 trillion market cap yesterday, Nvidia did their earnings announcement and hit $5 trillion. How many of you hold Nvidia shares? Come on, let me know. Did you all profit from this? Did you get some upside in this? Yeah, let's see. Nvidia becomes first company to close above 5 trillion market cap. Yeah, interesting to see. Wednesday became the highest historical. Look, it's up. It went all the way up past 210, some $210 per share, and it's now down at what, 203, still above 203. But if you went in yesterday, let's see, let's go into the 5-day average. Let's say you went in yesterday around lunchtime. No, this was 2 days ago. It pumped all the way up from, what was this, 192 to 210. So you made $20 a share. Yeah, so markets, equities going to go up. I don't think it's going to slow down anywhere soon. We also saw, I think Microsoft did an announcement that didn't go too well. Anybody know what the reason and rationale is behind the Nokia investment / purchase? What do you think it is? Here, where is the announcement? Actually, I want to look that up because I come from the mobile background. So Nokia got rid of the handsets, but they focused heavily on infrastructure. So they're building out a lot of the wireless networks, the wireless base stations. And what do you do in the base stations? Maybe we're moving intelligence and AI closer to the edge. And that means that these base stations need to be smarter. Is there a way that these base stations can expand and retract their network intelligently to get better accuracy and lower power consumption on the device side, number one, and based on the volume of users inside a specific coverage zone of a base station? Those are things that are needed inside and have a significant impact on capital investments for mobile networks and coverage. Nvidia, and Nokia. What is that about? I want to do some research here. I'm looking at Yahoo. Nvidia's next big things could be flying cars. Nvidia CEO, GTC, flying cars. 6G, yeah. So they're going. The biggest came with Nokia, where Nvidia announced head turning. Okay, so it's a 6G chipset investment, right? So they're actually going to build better processing capabilities and add AI elements into 6G networks. Interesting. That would make sense. I mean, all of these base stations need processing power. They're all chips. So, yeah. So 6G is the next future. And how does NVIDIA play in that? Let's see. Interesting. Anyway,